weekly, semi-weekly AMA, Ask Me Anything. If you're here and this is your first time tuning in, just let me know you're here. Say, yo, Dave, what's up? And let me know where you're tuning in from. Tuning in from Montreal, Ottawa, London, Kiev. Got to do a shout out to my Ukrainian bros that just smashed through the Russian line. SLAVA UKRAINI. Thanks for the listens on the podcast too. Pretty cool. I'm in the top 50 in alternative health podcasts in Ukraine. So hoping that it's helping you guys bring the warhammer down on the Ruskies. Now, I don't dislike the Ruskies. I think as a people, they're great. So let's make sure that we call a spade a spade. The political leaders aren't what defines them. Okay, so got a lot of good Russian friends. And I feel for those Russian conscripts that are getting their asses handed to them without proper leadership. So war sucks, that's for sure. But I am glad that the Ukrainians are kicking the shit out of them, it looks like right now. So keep up the good work, guys. All right. I digress. What do I want to talk about today? Well, I want to chat about why I work with dudes. So the reason why I wanted to talk about that today is I don't know if it's straightforward, but just to listen in and understand the method to my madness. Because I've had a few comments, right? Like, it's not a men-only group. That's for sure. Ladies are obviously welcome and encouraged to join. But I do get the question, like, hey, like, why is this free training like geared for men? Well, you know, there's women veterans too. Fully aware of that. But personally, I choose to work with men on the bigger stuff. Beast program, for instance. That is a men-only program. And the reason why I choose to do that is simply because I know how to work with men well. So I can really get men that are, you know, between 35, 45, 50 to the next level of their fitness and longevity goals. Simple as that. I've been working with them for a while. I feel very comfortable working with them. And I know the research really well. So that's my niche. That's who I like working with. Doesn't mean I haven't worked with women. Doesn't mean I don't work with women now. But at the core offer level, at the higher level, I like working with men specifically. And we have the Athena program, which is run by Audrey, which is for retired calf women, and it's 100% free. So I definitely have offerings for women. That's I want to make that clear. But personally, I don't work with women in that Beast program. I do have women that are in the 30 to Lean program, the Athena program, but I want to clear that up, make sure that you knew where I was at. So if you do want a personal trainer that is building you out like brand new, like high speed training programs, we have Louis Philippe and we have Audrey. Okay. And they are much better than I am. We can devote better resources and know the research a lot better. So thought to clear that up. All right, moving on. So I wanted to hit on a few things. First one, Vegas, baby. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to Las Vegas at the end of the month. End of October, not this month, end of October, I should clarify. The reason why I'm going to Vegas is there is a military influencer conference that is going on down there, which is bringing all the top military influencers from the US, and we're all going to be hanging out in a hotel in Vegas. Yeah, I know, it's probably going to get sloppy. It's probably going to get a little wild, but I'm really pumped for this because we got some really interesting people that are going to be speaking there. And the goal is to make a ton of contacts and hopefully get some really cool people on the podcast, be on their podcast, and to really elevate the level of where we're at here at Dave Morrow PT. Talk about the podcast, talk about the Nimble Warrior, talk about all the good things we're doing here, Canada side, and to make sure that we also showcase the newest endeavor that I started taking on a few weeks ago. You may have seen a post. Me and my buddy Mike, me and my battle buddy Mike, we created a new company, and that is called voluntold.co. And the reason why we started this company is because we had a convergent idea that coalesced one day. I had this idea that hey, I should really create an app, because I always had this goal of helping 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds. So it's a really audacious goal. I'm like, man, that takes a lot of work. Like, it's audacious and scary at the same time. So on a 10-year time frame, that's where I'd like to be. As it stands right now, that's not realistic. So how do we scale that, right? Even if, let's say, I was working with 100 veterans a year, let's say, plus, I still wouldn't likely get to that goal just by the math, right? Like 2 million pounds, that's 20 pounds for 100,000 veterans. Okay, so how do we get there? Well, we figured at the same time, which is pretty interesting. Hey, why don't we develop an app? Why don't we develop an app that takes your wearable data, so your watch, phone, whatever, and brings it all in one place, but it's designed for veterans to use. So it was a weird conversation, because I was like, dude, did I tell you this conversation when I was like high or drunk or like not thinking straight? Because I think you just you either stole my idea or you got into my head and you did a mind meld, and now we're thinking the same thing. He's like, nah, man. He's like, no, I literally had this idea, and I reached out to you because you're the fitness guy. I was like, holy shit, universe, creating something right there. So let me just show you where we're at right now with the project. We are in development, which is really cool. So we're using a company here in Montreal called Ambiance to literally develop our new app. So in a few weeks, we will likely have a working product. So here we have it right here. This is our Patreon page. I'll drop the link here too for you guys. You can become a Patreon member. And the goal of this page is we're going to be obviously generating content which will be shared with you, and you can become a supporting member early on. Not to mention, we're going to be requiring some beta testers. So if you want to be a beta tester, it's absolutely free. You get to be ground floor in this project to test out whether or not it works. So this is going to be really cool. I've never done this before. I'm not a software guy, so I'm contributing what I know on the fitness side of things to get this up and running. So we're going to be sending out a survey or a registration form. We're going to need about 30 people. So that will be coming down the pipe very shortly, likely next week. So stay tuned for that. Love to have as much input as possible on a new project. And the goal of the project, I should have stated it earlier, was we're kind of fed up with the veteran suicide crisis. And I know from the research that fitness, PT, dramatically improves our overall well-being. Not only that, it decreases obesity rates. These are all things that are actually statistically greater in the veteran community. So when obesity goes up, mental health issues are correlated as well. So you have a compounding effect there. When you have mental health issues that are compounding, you're out of shape, and you start going to that downward spiral of shit, the chances of suicide go way up. And so I can't help on the mental health side of things directly. I'm not a therapist. But what I can do is provide a medium in which an individual can get up off their ass and get motivated in a group of like-minded people to start putting a dent in this crisis, because it's not going away. So that's the reason why we got involved in this project and why we're creating it. We want to have it a place that a veteran can go and get healthy. They literally go for a walk, go for a run, and get rewarded at the end of the day for doing it in a game environment. That's what we're going to be putting together. So stay tuned for more on that. And you can go to voluntold.co. That's our landing page right now. We don't really have much on it, but our Patreon page is up and running. So that's patreon.com/voluntold. I'll be sharing that link right here in the comments. All right, so moving on. We got a few other things, man. Well, I've got 15 more copies left of my first edition of the Nimble Warrior. I need to get rid of them, guys. I want to just proliferate them. So if you pay me shipping and handling, which is $9.99 Canadian, I'll ship it out to you as quickly as humanly possible. I've only got 15 copies left. I want to make room for my second edition, which is ready to go. I want to get that pumping out, and I want to get the audiobook done, which would be pretty cool, I think. And I want to be able to sell it as cheaply as possible so that we can get as many earballs as possible and get this flywheel going for Veterans Health. So 15 copies left. I'll be dropping the link here as well for that. If you want to go to thenimble-warrior-book.com, you can go there as well. And first come, first serve, guys. Simple as that. I've only got 15. So if you get your name in soonest, you'll be able to get your copy, and I'll send it right to your door, and I'll even sign it for you. And $1 goes to Warrior Adventures Canada. So not only do you get the book, but you also get to benefit of a really good Canadian veterans cause that takes veterans out into the wilderness, and they do some really interesting excursions. Pretty cool, eh? Okay. And then what was the last thing here I wrote down? Man, I can't even read my own writing. Yeah, my running seminar, which I ran last week. Man, did that suck. Okay, so really appreciate you guys for tuning in, if you did. Hence the reason why I'm doing this feed right now, because I just wanted to make sure that this all works. Okay, so clearly it's working a lot better than it did before. So I'm going to be running that next week, so stay tuned. It's going to be a running clinic that is going to be online that's going to hopefully get you running again with significantly less knee pain, right? That's kind of like the biggest hurdle when you guys are a little bit older and want to get back into running. It's like, oh, my knees, my back, everything hurts, right? Like we went on death runs. We didn't understand how to take care of that and police that. I've learned a few things that have really helped and allowed me to do marathons and Ironman and Ironman, not Ironmans and Ironman. And I wanted to share with you guys. So it's stuff that I go over in my Nimble Warrior book, but I've condensed it and made it really relevant to running because I love it as well. Oh yeah, that's one thing here. That's why I wasn't able to read on my little reminder here. I've been running every day now for 2 weeks with a weighted vest. And the reason why I'm doing that is I'm testing something out. So I'm doing 20 minutes of running every day, and I'm monitoring health and objective measures. So I'm using a tape measure on my waist. I'm not changing my diet. I am not changing really anything else. I'm just going for a run for 20 minutes with a weighted vest to see what the results are. So I'll be posting that on YouTube once I have the results, good or bad, to see where it goes from here. But that's all to say. It was supposed to tie into that running thing really well. So I guess it'll have to just work on the back end. So stay tuned for that coming up. I'll be posting it in the Facebook group. And lastly, I wanted to thank all you guys for voting for the Hard to Kill podcast for the best veteran podcast of 2022, best Army podcast of 2022. Really appreciate it, guys. Like the voting is ended. We'll know as of the 5th of October, I believe, who are the winning podcast. And it was just a real honor to be the only Canadian on there. And I know a lot of you guys were setting timers and alarms and voting every day. And that's awesome. Apparently, from the Broken Jar Head guys, the top podcast and the second most popular podcast, or the second highest voted podcast, there was only a 12 votes in between them. So, I mean, hopefully I'm the one that's number one, but I just wanted to say, if you took the time to do that and vote, I really appreciate it. Really, really, really appreciate it. And the podcast keeps on growing. So the guest list is pretty cool. Next week, we're going to have Dr. Kelly Starrett again on the podcast. K-Star, it's going to be his second appearance. Actually, we're going to be talking about kids and their school environments. He's got a really cool foundation to get kids standing and using standing desks rather than sitting down all day. It's really cool. He's a athletic therapist, and The Supple Leopard got a bunch of New York Times bestselling books, if you aren't aware of who he is, and was the reason why I got into the whole mobility game and really helped me actually heal myself. So I borrow a lot of what he does and incorporate into what I do. And if you're looking for something that's really in depth with respect to mobility, he's the guy to go to. I'm the gateway drug. I'm the Nimble Warrior. You can read my short book. It's about 100 pages. And then after that, if you want more, you want to get really in depth, then head over to Kelly's content. It is next level, and it's helping a lot of good people out. So additionally, I've got Cynthia Thurlow, who's a nurse practitioner down in the United States. huge in the fasting game, especially for women. So I think she's going to be a knockout, stellar guest. You're going to get a lot of really juicy info from her. And that's going to be on October 25th, I believe. And I've also got a really interesting dude coming on next week. Let me make sure I don't screw up his name here. I just want to make sure I've got it. We just had a chat, and his name is Tim, I believe. So he's a philosopher, which is pretty cool. He's a doctor of philosophy. And we're going to be chatting about moral injury. And he's crafted basically all his research around Nietzsche's work. And the main reference point he's using is "Thus spoke Zarathustra." Yeah, I know. Pretty like, well, how does this have to do with like PT and training and stuff? So I'll explain. He's looking at mental health and Tim Shaw, that's it. So Dr. Tim Shaw is going to be on Tuesday. So we're going to be talking about the concept of like moral injury and like just war. And it's relevant to any of us that, fought the wars over the last 20 years or, plus, because in the West, we have this concept of a just war, that when we go to war, we have the moral authority. And if we lose that, what does it mean for us? Like if we realize the war didn't have a moral justification, he looks at it from a very like meta viewpoint, that from a whole civilization point of view, like there's a reason why suicide is so high. There's a reason why we feel like we're empty and that we're like disaffected and bitter. It's because we were let down. We weren't held by the organization that we held to a very high standard. So that organization dropped us. They basically, for whatever reason, everybody has their own reason. In my case, I didn't feel like I got any support. I feel like as soon as I got injured, I was no longer useful and therefore let go. Never asked to remain in any kind of other function. And so I was medically released. And then the whole Afghan crisis then created this whole other terrible cocktail of emotions, because my opinion didn't really matter. And none of our opinions mattered, even though we were yelling as loud as we could, metaphorically, at the government to do something about the interpreters not being evacuated from Afghanistan. So it's going to be an interesting conversation, to say the least. So I'm brushing up. I'm reading a lot. I did a few posts. I did a few podcasts on Thus Spoke Zarathustra earlier last year, I guess. Is that last year or was that this year? I can't even remember anymore. I think it was this year. And in reference to Fight Club, actually, and how the two opposing men, or like fictitious men that he created in the book, the Ubermensch, which is like the Superman, and the Last Man, how they're really diametrically kind of opposed, and how it affects especially us as warfighters and veterans, because we're more of that Ubermensch, that Superman type mentality, where we like struggle, we like to sacrifice. But when all of society is more or less opposite to that, how does that affect us in the world, and how do we manage to navigate through the world, knowing that we live in kind of two different worlds? And especially now that we're out of the military, if you're a veteran, how do you come to terms with that, with your identity? It's wild stuff. Okay, so anyways, I've rambled on here, guys. Really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget, guys, the more you listen, the more you subscribe, the more you share with your friends, the bigger this community gets, and the closer we get to the 2 million pound goal. And if you're looking at as to, hey, look, thanks, Dave, like I've lost 5 pounds, like where do I put that? Like, how do I let you know that I'm losing weight thanks to like any of the stuff that you got like listed online, free content, whatever? It's in the Facebook group. So it's pinned to the top. It's a Google sheet. It's on the honor system. You can put your name, and I don't require anything else than that. I need name, and I'd love to have, what element you're in, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever. Drop it in there, and how many pounds you lost, and then there's a little total at the bottom. So as the days, weeks, months, years go by, let's get that number moving upwards to the 2 million goal. So we'll see you in the Facebook group on that. Oh, crap. I don't know what that is. Sorry, guys, just burped on the podcast. Very unprofessional of me. Okay, guys, that's it for me. Don't forget, train hard, fight easy. See you on the next one.